where we try to unpack the ideas that, well, really matter. Today, we're wrestling with something that might feel a little bit paradoxical. Think about it. We live in a world absolutely bursting with content, right? All designed to help us understand ourselves. I mean, you've got self-help videos, emotional intelligence books, endless personality quizzes, podcasts on, gosh, everything from trauma to purpose. It's all out there. So the question is, with all this information, why do we still feel like we're searching? Why do we struggle so profoundly to truly, know ourselves? It feels like we're drowning in data, but clarity just keeps slipping away. It feels like more than just a psychological puzzle, doesn't it? Something bigger.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's really striking in the material we looked at is how it frames this as a direct collision. Like you said, an external explosion of knowledge meeting this sort of internal collapse of clarity. We've never had so much stuff about the self available right at our fingertips. And yet, genuine self-understanding, that feels rarer than ever. That's the core paradox we're really getting into today, why all this info hasn't magically led to us knowing ourselves better.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that, because one of the first big insights from the source material, it hits you straight away. We often confuse having information with having genuine awareness. It's like, think about it for yourself listening right now. How many times have you felt like you know about something? You've read the articles, maybe watched the videos, but you haven't truly possessed that knowledge. It hasn't sunk in deep.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. The material makes this powerful point. Just because we can describe self-awareness, maybe we saw a viral clip explaining it, that doesn't mean we actually have it. We possess it. We might consume really deep content, but that doesn't automatically translate into deep reflection on our part. Think about it. Reading about anxiety just isn't the same thing as sitting with your anxiety, right? Or watching endless videos on finding purpose isn't the same as actually confronting your own feelings of emptiness, maybe. Information, like you said, it's everywhere, abundant. But insight, true insight, well, that needs active digestion, it demands time, it needs a bit of silence, maybe even some friction, a willingness to go deeper. The distinction is crucial. Knowing about the self is just fundamentally different from truly knowing the self.
That really lands, yeah. It makes me think about how much of modern life feels less about being and maybe more about appearing. Is that where this whole idea of performing the self comes in? Because it seems everywhere you look, people are like curating identities, optimizing their profiles, publicly narrating their growth journeys.
You've absolutely hit on a crucial point there. What the source material reveals is how this constant performance can really flatten the self. Our inherent complexity, which is actually quite beautiful, gets kind of reduced to an aesthetic, doesn't it? Like a personal brand. And our raw, messy emotions, they can end up just being content, something packaged and presented. We get so preoccupied with showing our reflections, presenting them, that we rarely just sink into them, rarely exist privately within them. True self-understanding, the sources really emphasize this. It needs privacy. It needs us to face our own contradictions. And it absolutely requires inner stillness. It just doesn't thrive on, external validation, applause, algorithms, likes.
Right. And speaking of content, the sheer volume, it just feels insane some days. Could all this abundance, this constant stream of input, actually be working against us when it comes to self-knowledge? Could it be creating more of a mental fog instead of clarity?
Well, that raises an incredibly important question, and the sources suggest, yes, it can. The more content we take in, the harder it can actually become to hear our own authentic voice underneath all that noise. We find ourselves subtly, maybe unconsciously, borrowing ideas, inheriting frameworks, adopting vocabularies, maybe spiritual ones, from others, but without really internalizing them. It's a subtle danger because we can easily confuse familiarity, thinking, oh, I've heard this before, I get it, with actual truth, our own truth. When you're just surrounded by this flood of external knowledge, it can, ironically, drown out your own intuition. And, when everything is presented as an answer or the answer, we can forget how to even ask the right questions for ourselves in the first place.
That's a powerful and slightly unsettling thought. And it connects to our culture's need for speed, right? There's this underlying expectation almost that self-knowledge should be fast, a quick fix, like a catchy headline or a perfectly cut Instagram reel. It feels like we're trained to rush, but understanding ourselves seems to need slowness.
That's absolutely right. The material we looked at is crystal clear on this. Self-knowledge isn't a headline. It's not a quick dopamine hit from scrolling. It's inherently a slow process. It's iterative. It involves a real willingness to listen to your own silence, to watch your contradictions play out without judgment, to just sit with what doesn't immediately make sense or resolve itself, and crucially, to painstakingly untangle your own core beliefs from all the noise, all the opinions you've absorbed from the world. Our culture, fueled by this endless consumption and the speed it implies, it fosters this expectation of rapid evolution,
Yeah.
instant growth. So we rush towards clarity, or what looks like clarity, but in doing that, we inadvertently skip right over the essential groundwork for genuine authenticity.
Okay, so this brings us to maybe the most ironic point, and it's a tough one to swallow. How much of the content that's supposedly designed to help us find ourselves can actually become a profound distraction from ourselves? I mean, I know I've definitely fallen into that trap before, scrolling for answers instead of looking inward.
It is a challenging truth, isn't it? And it's one the sources really press us on.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into this pattern of just endless consumption.
Yeah.
And it feels productive. It gives us the feeling that we're improving, we're evolving, making progress. But without real grounding, without that inner work, the material warns, it becomes just motion without direction. This forces us, and you listening, to consider some really tough questions. Why am I really watching this or reading this? What am I maybe afraid to confront in myself right now? And am I using this content to kind of numb my confusion, or am I genuinely using it to clarify things for myself?
Often, the truth isn't that we lack access to answers. It's more that we lack the courage to ask the real difficult questions that lead to our own unique truth. So, okay, we've dissected all these layers of the paradox: the information overload, the performance, the speed, the avoidance. What is genuine self-understanding then? How do we even define it if it's not just about consuming more stuff?
Well, the Think with Setaleur definition we encountered offers a really clear way forward, I think. It suggests self-understanding isn't merely knowing who you are in some fixed way. It's more about being honest enough to meet yourself exactly as you are, right now. Without the performance, without the pressure to present a certain image, and importantly, without rushing to immediately fix everything you find there. It's fundamentally gained by the quality of your reflection, not the sheer quantity of content you consume. And the powerful distinction they make is, it's not something you consume, it's something you have to cultivate, like a garden.
All right. So what does this all mean for you listening, for us trying to navigate this deep dive? It's really highlighted that while all this content can offer immense information, maybe even some insights, true self-understanding is ultimately an internal journey. It's deeply personal and often, pretty slow.
Yeah, precisely. Maybe to leave you with a final thought from the source material, something that really stuck with me. The self is not a file to be downloaded. It is a mystery to be lived. Sometimes more data, more content, it just builds taller walls between us and our own truth. It doesn't tear them down. Perhaps the rarest act in this age of infinite mirrors, as the source puts it, is to stop reflecting outward and simply look within. What might that look like for you right now in your own life? Something to consider.